Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for Pink Fresh Studio. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a beautiful fall card that features some color brought in with some die cuts rather than with some inks. And I'm going to be featuring these two product suites from Pink Fresh Studio. First up is the brand new Essentials Blanket Stitched Rectangles. You can see this is a nesting die set. There are 8 dies included and they feature this beautiful blanket stitched edge. Now I'll also be using the Print Shop Modern Botanicals product suite, and I'm going to be featuring the cling rubber stamp for this project as well as the dies. Keep in mind that these brand new essentials, they come in other shapes as well. So there's some blanket stitch ovals, hexagons, squares. Be sure to check out the full range because these are really useful dies. They're the kind of dies that you reach for over and over again. Now, rather than using inks to bring in color on my card project today, I thought I would use some cardstocks from my stash. So I've picked 3 of the dies that kind of nest together, and I'm die cutting the smallest one out of some ivory cardstock, the middle size one from some beautiful kind of sorbet colored cardstock, and then I'll die cut the largest one from some artichoke colored cardstock. Now, layering up simple dies like this is a great way to bring a lot of color to your card project and bring the detail that that blanket stitch edge really adds. So now that I've die cut kind of the feature shapes of my card project, I am going to start stamping with the Modern Botanicals cling rubber stamp, and I'm using my Misty stamping tool. So you'll notice that I took out the grip mat that's in my Misty stamping tool to make room for this thicker red rubber stamp. Now, if you don't have a grip mat, that's fine. You'll take out that black foam piece that comes inside of your Misty stamping tool to allow this red rubber stamp plenty of clearance. Now I've stamped this using Versamark ink onto some vellum using my Misty stamping tool, and I did prep the surface with a powder tool ahead of time so that my embossing powder would not stick to areas of my vellum that I don't want it to stick to. Now I've pulled this out of my Misty stamping tool, I'm covering it with some gold embossing powder and I'm flicking off the excess, and I'm using my heat tool to melt all of that embossing powder. On vellum, you just really want to keep your heat tool moving so that you're not getting too much warp in your vellum. Then I'll take the coordinating Modern Botanicals die and I'm going to tape that in place over the stamped images, run that through my die cut machine, and then I have all of these beautiful gold images that I can use on my card. I'm just going to arrange a few of these ahead of time so I get an idea where I'm going before I start working on my sentiment and other pieces of the card. So I think what I'm going to do is just kind of create a floral cluster over to this lower left-hand corner of my grouping. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and create my sentiment. And I'm using this Beyond Happy stamp and coordinating die set from Pink Fresh Studio. I'm prepping the surface of that scrap piece of antique ivory cardstock that I have, and I'm going to stamp the Just a Note sentiment using Versamark ink in that lower right-hand corner. I'm just trying to use up as much of this cardstock as I can before I toss it. So I'll coat that in the same gold embossing powder and heat set that as well. And then I die cut it using the coordinating die along with a couple extra layers to give it some dimension. And I'm thinking at this point that it's going to go in this lower right-hand corner. I'm trying to decide if it needs another element or not. I decided that a vellum banner from the Basic Banners die would be a perfect backdrop for this sentiment. So I pulled that out. I had a couple extra in the little pocket where I store the die. And now I'm adding some liquid glue and stacking up the additional layers of my sentiment die cut behind the stamped and embossed layer. This is just going to give it a little dimension and some weight on the front of the card and just kind of help it stand out from the background. I like to use liquid glue on this part because it allows me to kind of push the edges of the die cut to where they line up perfectly before it all sets up. To adhere my nested rectangles here, I'm just using some tape runner adhesive. I'm nestling them inside of each other. I will add some dimension to this piece when we add it to our card front, but for now, I kind of wanted to keep this a little on the lower profile side. I know that's rare for me, but in this case, I decided to just skip some dimension on this portion. Now for the florals, I'm using little dots of liquid glue kind of hidden behind the embossing powder areas or the embossed areas of these die cuts. and I'm just tucking in my florals around the large floral. So I've adhered the largest one first, and I'm taking the smaller bits and just adding some liquid glue to the lower stem of those, and then just kind of tucking them in at the top of this larger floral and just kind of arranging them there and filling it out until I just feel like it's what I'm looking for. Once I have those adhered on the front, then I'm going to take my sentiment and glue it to that vellum banner. It's kind of hard to see right now. And by the way, I use this basic banners die so much. It is the perfect backdrop for smaller die cut sentiments. I'll add some foam adhesive on the back of that to adhere my sentiment and my banner onto this little grouping of die cuts and stamped images that I'm creating. And then I decided I wanted to tuck one more smaller image towards the top. And since I've only added liquid glue to kind of the lower stem of each of these florals, I'm able to do that. To create my card base, I have a piece of craft cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5 inches. I'm scoring at 4 1/4 and then folding it in half and creasing along that fold line. I wanted to add a little bit of pattern to this card front, so I've grabbed the Dainty Plaid. This is another red rubber cling stamp, and this is another way I like to use them. I will often place them face up on my work surface, ink them up with my ink, and then take my paper directly to the stamp. You'll see I'll lay my card base directly onto the stamp, and then I'm going to keep one hand that kind of holds it in place and another hand that rubs all over the surface of the cardstock to transfer the ink. So if you don't have a MISTI stamping tool, this is a great way to get a great stamped image with your red rubber cling stamps, especially these larger ones. You can see I have a beautiful plaid pattern on my card base now, and I've added my stacked up rectangles to the card base using some foam adhesive. I'm just finishing my card off with some matte gold metallic pearls from Pink Fresh Studio. I'm placing them with my dual-tipped embellishment tool and a little bit of liquid glue, and that finishes off this beautiful fall card for today. This is a really simple card, but it packs a lot of punch because we have all of those colorful die cut with the beautiful blanket stitch details on the edge, and then we have all of the shine with the gold embossing powder. You don't always have to use your ink to bring a lot of color to your cards. Adding some stacked up die cuts is a great way to do it as well. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube, so if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you've enjoyed this project, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here so you don't miss any of the card making and paper crafting video tutorials shared. Let me know in the comments below if this is something you will find yourself doing in the near future. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.